Hey guys, welcome to my Vorago Rotation 1 guide. In this guide I'll cover everything that you need to know in order to be able to defeat Vorago. I'll be showing a kill with a couple of my friends that was a 5-man team, and I will be explaining what is going on during the... To begin with, let's take a look at my worn equipment. I believe that the best way to defeat Vorago is using magic, therefore my team is completely mage based. We're using Seismic Wand, Seismic Singularity, Full Virtus, Vigor Ring, Scream Show of Elements, and Runic Accuracy Aura. So basically Vorago has 5 different phases, and the idea behind each phase is to obtain a hammer which is separated in different parts, and that hammer is the only weapon that can actually kill Vorago, or kill Vorago to death, so to speak. Um, before each kill, we separate different roles to each person in the team. On the screen you can read who's doing what basically, because each different role requires different skills, different abilities, different ability bars. So we separate the roles in between the team, and when everyone knows what to do, it's much easier and it's really easy to get the kill done. So before you start the kill, there is a hit that no matter what you always obtain. It is 50k HP hit, and it's divided by the members of the team. As we have 5 members in the team, we get 10k damage each. So it's really important to make sure that you have 10k HP at the start if you do 5-man teams. The first phase um, is not that hard. It requires one person who can tank the mage bombs, which Vorago sends occasionally, and the way you tank them is just you farcast, you stay the further away from Vorago, and you make sure that the bombs always come at you. Uh, Another role during this phase is to climb up. On the west side there is a way where you can go inside the mountains and you can climb them. You go to the spot where Vorago is at the moment, behind Vorago, and you climb on the back of Vorago. You do this because by doing this you obtain one of the pieces for the hammer I've already mentioned before. And when that is done, you just finish Vorago, and you finish the first phase by doing that. Of course, it's important to have a person who is a main tank. He has Vorago on him more or less all the time, and on this phase it's the best probably that person to lure Vorago at the rock where the person who is climbing jumps on the back of Vorago. The main tank and the person who's tanking the bombs, they use quite a lot of defensive abilities, so their bars are more or less defensive based, but they're also trying to do as much as possible DPS. And now here, this is the second phase. It's really important at this part that you leave the main tank to hit Vorago first. Now you can see the hit that Vorago is using. He's smashing the ground. That's a bleed attack. And uh, the way you handle this is just having 3 people to take the bleeds, because Vorago sends 5 bleed attacks. What we do is the main tank takes 2 bleed attacks. The first one he leaves by using freedom, and the second one using escape. Then another person provokes Vorago, takes 2 bleeds with freedom and escape again. The third person takes the last bleed effect, the last bleed attack. After all the bleeds are done, all 5 of them, there is a space with about 10 seconds time where you can DPS Vorago, and after that Vorago is going to reflect any damage received in about 10 seconds. So you have to be really careful with this part because you can really uh, kill a member of your team. The reflected damage is reflected to only one team member, and imagine if 5 people hit 2k each, the person can just die instantly. So you have to be really careful at that point and not hit Vorago when he's deflecting damage. Um, yeah, you can see on the screen, we're avoiding the bleed attacks. I just used search instead of escape. It doesn't matter which one you use, as long as you can escape. Uh, a good tip here is when you provoke Vorago to be melee distance, uh, because in that way you don't move Vorago and the person who's using escape will stay 7 steps away from Vorago, as those are required not to be not to be getting any bleeds from him. Because if Vorago moves, the person who used escape, even though he escaped, he'll still get bleed. And now here you can see this is a part, one of the two parts in this phase where you have to do as much as possible DPS to make Vorago weaker. Uh, it's You have to do this twice because this phase is based on time. It's not based on anything else. Vorago has to do 6 times the bleed attacks, and you just avoid them after the first 3. Vorago requires to damage him as much as you can, and after the 6th you have to do the same, and if you do as much damage as you're required, you obtain another part of the hammer. The hammer contains 3 parts. You get the parts from phase 1, phase 2 and phase 4, and during phase 5 your purpose is to use the hammer on Vorago. Sometimes a random clan member gets a bomb, which is really risky if you're low HP. Just I would, I would advise you not to stay low HP doing Vorago because it's really risky. With a decent team of 5 people during this rotation, you should be able to be getting 3-4 kills each trip before you have to bank again, which is quite decent, and the profit is not bad if you get 4 kills an hour. And yeah, during this phase it's always the same story. You just provoke, freedom, escape, then the next person is doing the same, and so on. Until you finish all 6 times that Vorago has used bleed attacks on your team. And this is where we see that Vorago has used them 6 times because you have the second time you have to DPS him. At this point it's really advised that you spam Vorago as much as you can so you can fill the bar faster, because you get damaged while Vorago is at that position. And now you just do as much DPS as you can pull. Some people leave Vorago at this point at low HP because when the DPS is done, you just have to hit him once or twice before he's completely dead. Then when he's completely dead you have basically finished phase 2. And I got 26.6k XP, which is the maximum XP you can get in one phase. There's a trick where you can use magic and melee, for example, and the total XP could be more than 26.6k. Phase 3 during this rotation is Vorago spawns 2 minions and you just have to kill the minions. They're really easy to defeat and you have nothing to worry about, so you just go and kill the minions. Although Vorago sends bombs all the time, so you have to have your bomb tanker active. Uh, when the first of those 2 minions dies, the second one becomes twice as stronger, so any damage he deals, you get twice damaged. So the best thing to do here is to kill them more or less at the same time. Using Skype, TeamSpeak or anything else where you can actually communicate during the queues helps a lot. Yeah, some of my team members are using unicorns. That's because we don't really use any food, and if you know what exactly to do, doing Vorago is not that hard. So now we're at phase 4. This phase has some new stuff. It has 3 waterfalls. One of them spawns immediately after the phase starts. You have to hide behind the waterfall or you get damaged for 9k damage. After the waterfall you just go out and start damaging Vorago. Then a minion would spawn. At this point the minion spawns for me. It spawns for a random person in your team. I would suggest you, if you see a minion that is spawned for you, use anticipation and then just a threshold ability. Should be more or less enough to kill the minion. But anticipation helps a lot because the minion is using your abilities and it can stun you. I've also seen, like, if a person is really slow killing the minion could use metamorphosis or some other abilities, which is really funny. But the minion is based on your attack. If you're maging, it will be maging and so on. At this phase we also have to provoke again. So you have to, it's like a pattern. You know when the minions is going to spawn, you know when the waterfalls are going to come, you know more or less when you have to provoke. So when you have done it once and you have some experience, it's really easy to manage this phase. Now Vorago is reflecting, and after the reflect there will be a second waterfall where you have to hide behind it. Using anticipation or search at this point is not bad because you can keep your adrenaline. And now the second minion will spawn. I get the minion again, so I'll just use anticipation and the threshold. The minion dies really fast. By the way, when the minion has spawned, you damage Vorago with very low hits. You can see on the screen it's just 100 and 200. Just a bit after the minion is dead, you start hitting normal damage. And now the blitz will start, and after the blitz there will be the last third waterfall, and after the third waterfall you just have to finish Vorago off. It's really smart at this point to leave Vorago at around 20k HP. You do that because after the waterfall you can just finish him before it had spawned another minion. Basically 1 or 2 hits and you can go to the next phase. Otherwise you'd have to get another minion, then the other person will have to kill the minion. During that time you're hitting very low, so yeah, it's just wasting time. It's just better to leave Vorago at low HP. And this is the last waterfall. Now Vorago will drop the last piece of the hammer on the ground, and the person who is gathering all the pieces can pick it up. Yeah, after every phase, Vorago jumps 3 times, and if you stay in 3x3 area, Vorago will damage you, and as I just did on the screen, using search is one of the ways to escape them and not get damaged. So this is the last phase. The idea here is to have only one person who is tanking the bombs, and it's usually the same person who is tanking the bombs in each phase, and all the rest are just going to DPS Vorago. When you damage Vorago, Vorago moves backwards, and when Vorago damages your team, he moves forward. What you have to do is to move Vorago until the edge of the room, and when Vorago is at that point, the member who has the hammer has to use the hammer to finish Vorago off. So in this phase, what you have to look for is just um, when you're not able to hit Vorago when he's reflecting damage, just try to be careful not to damage any of your team members. The reason why everyone except the person who is tanking the bombs is staying south is because this way we would have only one person getting damage from Vorago, which means Vorago won't have to move forward, and we're just going to concentrate on DPS and move him backward. And once Vorago has reached the end of the room, the person with the hammer will just stay melee distance to Vorago, use the hammer and finish Vorago, so you can obtain the drop. And this was an entire queue that I've showed you. I'm not sure if I have covered everything, but I've tried to cover as much as possible. If you don't understand something, just leave a comment asking and I'll try to explain it.